Welcome everyone. My name is Kellen Steele. This is Pixsturefilms, episode 3. Just to get right into it, Dehancer has reached out to me and asked that I give a thorough review of their film emulation plugin. And I wanted to see how it works for me in my particular node tree and my workflow, as well as share with you guys my opinion and what I think. I'll share the pros and maybe some cons of the Dehancer plugin, what I like, maybe some things I like to see improve, and also you can receive a 10% discount with the code listed below. So make sure you take advantage of that as you decide if you would like to use Dehancer in your purchase. You can receive a discount. Just to also make sure that this is a clear disclaimer, this is not a paid advertisement by Dehancer at all. They asked me to do this with my own merit and to do this freely. This is not a paid promotion of any kind. So I'm just going to give you guys my honest review. So I decided to go with a node-based color management system, and which allows me to put a color space transform at the beginning and at the end of my node tree and be able to implement Dehancer within that particular system. And so what we see here on the input, or at the beginning of my node tree, we have the input color space for Canon Cinema Gamut, the input gamma, Canon Log 3, the output color space is DaVinci Wide Gamut, and the output gamma is DaVinci Intermediate. So we'll be working through the DaVinci Intermediate and DaVinci Wide Gamut color spaces through this node tree. At the end, we see at the end of my node tree, we have the CST, the out, and that will receive the input color space for DaVinci Wide Gamut, the input gamma, DaVinci Wide Intermediate, and then the output color space, Rec 709 and Gamma 2.4. So we have Dehancer at the very near to the very end, as is recommended by Dehancer itself, to place Dehancer, the plugin, at the end or toward the end of the node tree. And so I will activate it in just a moment. What I'll do is I'll turn on my exposure balance so you can kind of see how I began doing my process. Saturation, contrast, we have the outside and the skin. We also have the window, which allows me to do and create or texture, personalize my own vignette. And then we have, guess last, Dehancer. And as you can see, this is a profile that I used. Look to your right, the Kodak Color Plus 200, and then I implemented the print was the Kodak 2383. And if we take a look at the top, we start with our input, and the source was DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate, because we're working with the DaVinci Wide Gamut color space. And we also can affect the exposure on our particular clip, which you can use this in replace of DaVinci's exposure if you were to use the offset, or you may have decided to use the HDR, which works a bit more photocentric, photoelectric effect when it comes to the exposure. But in any case, you can use the Dehancer's version. And as we work our way down from the exposure, we have our temperature and our tint. Again, this can be in replace of DaVinci's temperature and tint as well. And then as we work toward our film profile, I chose the Kodak Plus 200. It has more of a day inside look and feel. We also have the developer. I made adjustments to the contrast boost, the gamma correction. I didn't touch the color separation and adjusted the color boost. I'll just give you guys an idea about the film developer. It really does affect the contrast greatly, and when you when you slide these faders, you get a good understanding of how it's affecting the film itself. Right now we're at set 33.9. If I move it to the left, you can see that it decreases the contrast, and as I move to the right, it increases the contrast pretty well. And I'll turn it back to where I had it. There's the gamma correction, and what this does, this allows this particular effect to either veer toward the highlights or veer toward the midtones. So if I was to go to gamma correction and I scroll to my left in the negative, you can see at the bottom in the scopes how it's making an adjustment there. And I'll put it back to where it was. And then we also have color separation. As you can see. And then the color boost, which really affects the saturation on the film. We can decrease till we get very low on the saturation, and then pretty intense when we move our fader to the right. We also have film compression, and we have the impact of how much this will affect the contrast as it regards to the highlights. You have your white points, which can, as you can see, really focus more on the highlights, somewhat near toward the midtones. And then we have our tonal range. Now this is the nice fader, which will either bias toward the highlights or midtones. We have our color density as well, so you can also make a slight adjustment there. As we work our way down, we have our black point. This is recommended to use the black point once you make a selection to your film profile. Once you select your film profile here, you want to go to your expand, and you can make your adjustments with the highlights and shadows, black points and your white points here under the expand option. Also, something I wanted to point out to you was you scroll all the way down and you go to monitor. You have options of seeing your false color, as well as if there's any clipping when it comes to your white point and your black points, and you're able to see that. So I'll do a quick demonstration regarding your black points and your white points with the clipping indication option enabled. If we go back to our expand and I make the adjustment to my black point, notice what happens when I increase the shadows. You'll see blue in the areas that have bypassed or where you're clipping the shadows. And then if we adjust the white points and we increase the exposure of the white points, notice it turns red. And so that's what's happening when you're clipping. So these are really some nice indicators that was provided and implemented into Dehancer software. As we move forward, we have the color head, which allows us to adjust the yellow, blue, magenta, green, and cyan red, which I like because, as you can see, it gives me some options to really sway the look and feel of this particular clip. And I will just make a slight adjustment so you can see how far we can go. We get more of a negative impression of the film as it relates to the effect, blue or yellow. And I'll bring that back to where I had it. We have the magenta green, as you can see, somewhere in between where you can vary. And then cyan red. Then we also have the shadow tones as well, where you can make adjustments in the shadows and the tonality of its color. Notice the mid-tone tones that blue. We have more of a warmer orange color. And then we also have the highlights, which is more toward the teal blue and the yellow, a little bit of green, at least to my eye. And then we have the preserve exposure, which will either bring it back more toward the film profile or allow you to see the adjustments that was made with the color head. We also have the film grain. As you can see here, there are different film grain applications you can apply from 8mm all the way down to 65. And there's the 35, which might be a bit more, you can see it a bit more defined. And then you also have the 65, which I prefer. And then you can adjust the amount, how prevalent you want that to look on your general look on your clip. We also have halation. And with halation, we can amplify it to a great degree. What I like about this particular clip is you can see it very well here where there are highlights, where our highs are, our light is being applied in this clip. And so notice when I amplify it at 100%, and that's as far as you can go. But if I decrease, as you can see, it takes it down. If I increase, you can see it has more of a reddish, orangey look to it around the highlighted areas. And then we also have bloom, which has been enabled. And if I increase the bloom, again, you can see it where there's highlighted areas. I decrease the bloom, I increase the bloom. It gives more of a dreamier kind of appearance to the highlights. And then we also have film damage. And I'll just play this clip a little bit where it is so you can kind of, as you can see, it creates artifacts, line artifacts and dust artifacts. And then you can control how much of those artifacts you want to be able to see, as well as if it's 16mm, 35mm, and so forth. I want to disable that. We also have film breadth. And again, you can choose the profile with the film breadth from 8 to 65mm. And we'll take a look at it at 100%. As you can see, it affects the, some ways, color of the film. And I'll disable that. We also have gate weave. And I'm playing that a little bit so you can kind of see how it responds. And it's set for 35mm. Let's put it at 16. Let's see how gate weave does. Okay, very good. And then when I disable that, we're also going to go to down on the bottom here. As I mentioned before, I prefer to use DaVinci's ability to control and create my own vignette, but Dehancer does have it here. As you look to your right in your settings area, you can increase or decrease the vignette exposure, the size, and the amount. And we're going to enable it. You can decrease and increase the exposure and size of the amount. Here is the size. Let's take the exposure all the way up so you can see it on the outer areas of this clip. We also have aspect ratio. And so I prefer to just do it myself with Dehancer using various window options. There's the feather. Make it dark. So these options are available to you. We also have the monitor, as I mentioned before. You can see your false colors to know where your exposure is, whether it's too hot or too cool, or areas that may need to be adjusted. We also have the output, how much of this effect will be applied to your clip, whether you bring the total impact all the way to 0 or you bring the impact to the right to 100%. And it also allows you to create a LUT from your particular look and feel that you have created yourself. And you can export this as the 33 or a small 17 by 17. There's options at the bottom where you're able to see your license info and input your license information, as well as checking your profile and making sure that all your profiles have been updated and downloaded into the plugin. So that's a pretty much review of DaVinci along with Dehancer. I'll just show you a couple more clips that I worked on with Dehancer and activated and the profiles that I'm using. As you can see here, we'll go to the top and I'll remove that clips. I decided to use Fuji Color Pro 400, which I just like that better in this particular atmosphere of this clip, as well as the Kodak 2383. And then we made adjustments to the color head. And so really it's a good way to just start from the top, work your way down. But as well mentioned to you earlier, there's a couple of things you want to keep in mind, which was the monitor having your clipping indication check mark enabled, as well as not forgetting to adjust your white point and black points if you see a need once you select your film profile. So there's some improvements that I like to see that I would think could be implemented that would be really nice for the workflow and customer experience that Dehancer users could benefit from. And so one of those things would be such as we should be able to see the results of the different film prints and profiles instantly as you toggle the film print with your keyboard or controller to audition different prints rather than having to click on each one with the mouse to select it in order for it to become active. And in other words, part of the experience should be if I click on the film tab in Dehancer and I click on with my mouse and I just scroll down the different profiles, it should kind of give me an idea about what it would look like. Rather than selecting it, I click on it and then it would allow me to preview on the viewer exactly what it would look like. And that would be something I think would be very helpful for the user experience. I think it would speed it up. Another improvement would be hovering the mouse over the effects sliders. And it gives you a brief statement as to what it does or a small pop-up paragraph with some description. So near the effects sliders where you see the effects with their names, like under the film developer, contrast, boost, gamma correction. If I put my mouse there, what would be nice is some brief description that tells me what it does or how it's going to affect my clip. That would be nice. And then a third thing would be, since Dehancer recommends once you choose your film profile to immediately after you want to look to adjust the expand drop down feature, why not place the feature just below the film profile since it's recommended to be placed in the workflow. So in other words, if there's certain things that Dehancer recommends doing, rather than ping-ponging back and forth, place it exactly where it needs to go, working from top to bottom, so that way it'll make it a lot easier on our workflow. Just a suggestion there. But in all, I really enjoyed Dehancer. I think it is a nice tool to be used with any project when you're trying to get close as possible the filmic look and the filmic profiles. I think it does a really good job there, as well as the grain and the inherency of how it implements grain and all the other effects. Those are basically what I liked mostly about it, and how you can really make adjustments with the faders, which is really nice, and tweaking and sliding and seeing how those adjustments are being made to your clip. All in all, they get a thumbs up, 2 thumbs up from me. This is Kellen Steele once again, episode 3. This is Pixsturefilms, and we'll see you again.